Hello dear students, this is the second class of Q&A. The classes from the fundamentals of sociology will begin from tomorrow, and I'm sorry I'm one day late, right? It's extreme hot here, and before I proceed in terms of letting you know what to do with the trend analysis, or what has been the trend analysis in the last few years when I'm looking at the paper 1 and paper 2 in sociology and optional in civils. The classes from 30, 31st and 1 would be a bit delayed. Some medical emergency has emerged out, but you don't worry because the test would be there, test would be conducted, so PYQs could be discussed. So you don't worry, 1 or 2 days here and there late would be there, and very honestly I am saying it, so don't lose your heart. Now once we have talked about how to approach the sociology in the civils, today we are more concerned of the trend analysis, and here in a trend analysis paper 1 and 2. Now when we are looking at the trend analysis, the certain kind of questions which have emerged out, they require more deeper understanding of yours. Not only a very shallow kind of understanding. No only one reading, sometimes very analytical one, interdisciplinary approach that has started emerging out. And I had said it last year as well, that anyone who is going for the mains needs to be now analytical, conceptually very sound, and somewhere he has to focus on the interdisciplinary approach and integration between the units from one to another, so that the finer points of your answers would not be missed. Once I'll be invigilating or once I'll be going through your answer sheets, the questions, the tests, I'll be in a better condition to talk to you one-to-one, and personally we'll be having the Google Meet so that I can talk to you that where the things have gone wrong or what are the things which are required and how you have done very good. So this kind of comments which will be coming out I'll connect to you personally. Now when we are looking at the syllabus, the purpose of this Q&A, which I had called mini foundation, is to make you not only understand the different units which are there in a paper 1 and paper 2, but also to have a deeper analysis, insight into the themes, sub-themes, concepts, so that your confidence level would be high. And I told you, once again I am repeating, you are in the most safest hand in terms of sociology here. Nothing will go wrong. 1 or 2 classes would be delayed. That's all right, that you have to spare me. And sociology will not be cause of rejection, I will not be cause of rejection, which I had told you earlier, and once again I am saying this one. Believe me. Your first aim should be to go through the entire syllabus. No escapist tendency. When I say escapist tendency, like out of the 10 units in a paper 1, suppose if you have prepared only 6 and you have left 4. This is an escapist tendency. The best strategic approach is that you have gone through the entire 10. But you have zeroed more on 6. So that way the things should be approached by you. Now one by one when you're looking at, when you're talking about sociology, the discipline, and more precisely Unit 1, where we are talking about the modernity, social changes and emergence of sociology. The subject matter scope of sociology and its relationship with other social sciences. And the last one, the part C in Unit 1, is a common sense in sociology. Now when we are looking at the trend, in the last few years we are finding about the questions on the historical context and enlightenments. And they are also trying to understand that whatever you have read, is it isolated or not? For example, the question when they asked you in terms of enlightenment and Renaissance. So if you remember last class, I said, and tomorrow when I am talking about the fundamentals of sociology, I had drawn the timeline, timeline of the thought process. And very quickly, if I ask you to revise, that the thinking seems to be as old as mankind himself. It is believed that from the 3rd and 4th century, particularly from the writings of Plato, Aristotle, a systematic thinking began. But up to the 12th century, the medieval age, medieval period, somewhere the theological doctrine was the more important. The theological based on the science, the religion. The ideas upheld and propagated by the church, the religious doctrines and their supremacy in terms of great chain of being, that was the most dominating explanatory device. But from the 13th century onwards, certain tentative changes started emerging out in which Renaissance and intellectual upheaval played an important role. Followed by the development of modern science and the search of the natural laws to understand the natural phenomena. Right from Bacon to Copernicus to Galileo to Descartes, we will find about how the newer kind of scientific development started taking place. And then from the 17th, 18th century, enlightenment emerged out. And that's why I always say that the path of progress which was initiated by Renaissance followed by development of natural science, it started crystallizing in the period of enlightenment. That is a critical reaction against tradition and modernity, tradition and authority. And thus, we started having the certain shifts from religion to reason, focus on scientific temperament, individual rights, freedom. Such kind of changes will be coming out. I'll be talking about tomorrow in terms of this one. But here the questions which are coming out in the last few years are basically the focus on historical context of the emergence of sociology, enlightenment. And they are also trying to know about the scientific distinctiveness of sociology, more precisely in relation to the common sense and sociology. Two range of questions are there. That's why I said that you have not only to read, you have to go behind the lines, you have to go deeper into the concepts, deeper into the units. Common sense in sociology, the one line which will come out, that what is the scientific nature of sociology, that separates sociology from the common sense. But they are also trying to test your knowledge. If you look at the question, what is the significance of common sense in sociological analysis? Thus, the clarifying sociological scientific distinctiveness is yet another trend that is coming out in the Unit 1. Interdisciplinary scope, I had already told you. And maximum questions are there in terms of modernity and social reforms. And some quotations are emerging out in terms of relationship of sociology with other social sciences. More precisely in terms of history, anthropology, psychology, and sometimes they have combined political science and economics. So this is the trend on which the first paper is going on, the first unit is going on. The type of question seems to be stable. The first unit shows the continuity in the question types which we have been there, with short notes, discussions and elaborations. Though in the last 3 to 4 years, the nature of questions in unit 1 have become analytical and interdisciplinary one. They would also be trying to understand that how sociology has evolved and how evolving role of sociology in understanding modern complex society. So this is the trend which are emerging out in a unit 1, paper 1. Paper 1, unit 2, sociology as a science. A good number of questions are coming from here. And I told you unit 1 is basically divided into 5 parts. A, B, C, D, E. No, this is only one part. Sociology is a science. Not entering to debate whether sociology is a science or not. The premise on which sociology emerged is the nature was scientific. With this promise, with this search, that as the natural scientists are discovering the natural laws to study the natural phenomena, so should be the responsibility of the sociologists to discover the social laws, akin means similar, akin to natural laws, to understand the social phenomena. And from the very perspective, the founding father of sociology, August Comte, from there, the positivism and its foundation would be laid down. A scientific way of understanding society and the different facets of society will be emerging out. And then the certain theoretical perspective will be coming out. In terms of functionalism, in terms of structural functionalism, in terms of conflict perspective, interpretivism, Weber. But this all is all about macro, micro, positivist, non-positivist one. And they are asking that what is the strength of positivism, what are the criticism of criticism, what are the limitations of positivism, along with the 2 more dimensions they have added. And they are not the orbit questions. Neo-positivism, post-positivism, that how the certain kind of debate in subjectivity, objectivity which has been there between positivism, non-positivism, how this is getting a new kind of ground. But more precisely, in the last few years, the certain domains, perspectives of non-positivist method has been opened up. In terms of phenomenology, ethnomethodology, dramaturgy. So that's why I say that when you're talking about theoretical stands, do not go only by the passing reference. Make a very short notes which will make you write the questions in 250 words. And if they ask you 150 words, that could be curtailed, that could be reduced. But positivism, non-positivism, post-positivism, interpretivism, symbolic interactionism, phenomenology, ethnomethodology, dramaturgy, if such kind of perspectives have emerged out in terms of theoretical stands, prepare a notes, because the changing trained questions which are emerging out in the last 2 or 3 years is on this very perspective. They are also asking the possibility of value-free sociology. And sometimes the questions are evolving in terms of objectivity, value neutrality. So there is a unit, facts and value, objectivity. So the trend basically shows a shift towards balancing positivism and non-positivism, or positivist and non-positivist perspective, with increased intention to interpretative methods and objectivity in research. Questions once again are becoming more analytical, requiring examples and critical engagement of you in terms of your understanding. Earlier, The unit 3, that is the research methods analysis, was somewhere 5 or 6 years back. Was a very simple kind of questions which were being asked. Quantitative, qualitative. But they are now asking in terms of more applied one, in terms of the mixed research method, mixed methods. Sampling they are asking you, the types of sampling, probable, non-probable samplings. That is ethnography, participant observation, biography. It means the methods of data collection, certain questions are coming from there. Some questions are there on reliability and validity. Earlier the questions were there in terms of measurements like Bogardas and others. So when we are looking at the trend in the last 5 years, the trend leans towards practical and technical aspect of research methods, with increased emphasis on qualitative approach and specific techniques like sampling, reliability tests. The focus is shifting from broad theoretical discussions to applied research challenges, right? Broader theoretical to the applied research kind of perspective. So the same debate of positivism, non-positivism which you have raised in Unit 2, in terms of quantitative, qualitative, that will be having its continuity in Unit 3, research methods analysis. And from there, how they are not to be viewed, quantitative, qualitative methods are not to be viewed as a poles apart. Rather, as the situation demands, we will be using them. So that way the research method, this question has come out to you last year. And that way the certain applied dimensions are emerging out. Now when we are looking at the paper 1, no much change has emerged, particularly in Unit 4, the heart and soul of sociology. That is the sociological thinkers, the 6 thinkers. I am not writing today because I will be writing it from tomorrow, because it was a trained analysis, so I wanted you to understand. So when you hear the video, please keep your syllabus in your hand so that you would be able to comprehend more. 6 scholars: Karl Marx, Emile Durkheim, Max Weber, Talcott Parsons, Robert King Martin and G.H. Mead. The focus has been on these 6 key thinkers. And very themes which have been written, they are being asked, like Marx alienation, they asked in 2018, 2020, and some added dimensions, Durkheim's anomie, suicide. Though the newer perspective that is emerging out apart from the key thinkers is a comparative analysis. Weber versus Marx, Weber versus Durkheim, also Durkheim and Martin on anomie. This was the 2022. Contemporary, sometimes they are trying to go deep and making you to relate the theories with the contemporary issues. Now whenever such questions comes out, whenever you look such kind of questions in mains or while approaching in PYQs, your first attempt should be to locate the questions in the themes and the concepts of the thinker. The moment you have been able to locate it, you would get the answer. Deeper conceptual understanding is required in doing the paper 1, Unit 4, that is the sociological thinkers. The trend shows continuity in covering major thinkers, but with a growing emphasis on comparative analysis and applications to contemporary issues. Questions are becoming more specific now, particularly from the sociological thinkers, focusing on particular concepts and also the relevance in a contemporary times. So you prepare it, do not go in terms of looking at all the themes which are there, prepare that one. And at the end of your preparation of the unit 4, 6 thinkers, come to the comparative analysis. Find out the common areas, found out the common themes on which the certain scholars have said it, and what differences, what similarities could have been there, you bring from there. All right. Weber Marx, Weber Durkheim, Parsons Merton, Durkheim Merton in terms of anomy, Grant theory of Parsons and Mulligan theory of Merton. Those who are new may not understand, but you will be understanding within a few days. So such kind of comparative analysis, the number of questions are increasing. But no much change is found. The trend shows that you need to understand the thinkers in depth and also with a very clear conceptual understanding, clear conceptual clarity. Yet another unit which is important in a paper 1 is the stratification and mobility, unit 5. They are asking in terms of the same comparative ones in the stratification, Marx versus Weber, the comparative analysis on stratification, the Trinity model of Weber is coming out, and they are asking the gender as a dimension, that is, the certain kind of questions are basically opening up. Hierarchy versus stratification, multi-dimensional aspects of inequality and others, these are increasing out. Theories of stratification, they are asking the questions, simple questions which are there. Only comparative analysis is there in terms of Weber versus Marx. And they are also asking the questions in terms of closed versus open system of mobility. Relating that with the stratification, asking you to explain the perspective of mobility within this one. So when I analyze the trend shows a growing focus on gender and intersectionality alongside continued emphasis on mobility and theoretical perspectives. Questions are increasingly becoming analytical, requiring critical assessment of stratifications, their theories, their dimensions. All right, some questions on social exclusion, poverty, such kind of dimensions are coming out. Do not approach them in isolated manner. Every subject had its own perspective. So sociology will bring its own perspective. You need to substantiate your answers on such kind of questions with a sociological perspective, with the sociological codes, with the sociological supports. And the unit 6, which is work and economic life, in which what I am finding last few years, not only the comparative analysis in terms of Marx and Weber has been, Marx and Durkheim has been asked in division of labor, but there are many questions on informalization of work. Informal sector, right from the paper 1 to paper 2, common area, is becoming more important in terms of this one. And they are also asking the certain contemporary questions. 2020, when we witnessed the lockdown, so they asked the questions from there in terms of work from home, 2020. Migrant labor, they asked. For 2020, they asked the labor policies, new labor codes in India. So the contemporary issues are being related with your understanding of the sociological perspective in a work and economic life. And the questions are common here. Particularly informal sector, migrant laborers. These are the questions which are, or these are the areas which seems to be common in paper 1 and paper 2 as well. Your focus should also be there in terms of formal and informal organizations. So they may ask the questions sometimes, and they are not offbeat questions. Informal form of bureaucracy. Prepare that one in terms of this one, so you go deep into the understanding of the formal and informal organizations, and try to go that how these studies on formal organizations have emerged out. And informalization of activities is not only for sociology. But that would also be the questions of GS paper 1 as well. When you look at the paper 1, unit 6, politics and society, the trend shows a shift towards identity politics. So it means questions of the movements are emerging out from there. The questions on civil society is emerging out. They are also asking certain kind of elite theory, C.W. Mills, alright, power elite, such kind of concepts are emerging out. So there is one unit, sociological theories of power, prepare that one. They are also, the new trend also is moving towards globalization and world politics, concept of power, postmodernism and power. So whenever you make it, what are the sociological theories? Go from traditional to the contemporary one. I'll help you when the unit comes out. So the trend shows a shift towards identity politics, social movements, and particularly role of civil society in democracy. Contemporary relevance. So prepare on that very perspective, power and elites, civil society in democracy. Alright. Environmentalism is also emerging out from there, though it is also a part of the paper 1, paper 2, in a part C, environment and ecological movements, but the questions are here as well. Unit 8, that is religion and society, maximum questions are there in terms of secularization, secularism, revivalism, religious pluralism, fundamentalism and communalism. Communalism would be there in the second paper as well. So the trend which is emerging out, the trend shows continuity in theoretical and pluralism related questions with a growing emphasis on secularization, fundamentalism, and also the certain contemporary issues which are coming related to the secularization process, their challenges, or fundamentalism, religious revivalism. Such way the questions are coming out from there. That is the trend. You will not be getting much difficulty in terms of this one. And the unit 9, that is system of kinship, descent and lineage, relevance of kinship, they are asking kinship as a social capital, patriarchy and gender, such kind of questions are increasing. Particularly in the second paper, regional variations are emerging out, southern and northern kinship system. Contemporary issues like recent questions 2022-21 address modern phenomena like across region marriage, LGBT rights, indicating a shift towards contemporary kinship dynamics. The trend shows a shift towards contemporary issues like patriarchy, live-in relationship. This is the one they are asking it. Cohabitation relationship, with the maintaining focus on regional kinship variation in second paper and theoretical perspectives. Descent and lineage, you prepare that one from there. Basic understanding should be there. More precisely, the difference from the first paper to second paper will be more important in terms of Gotra and one's Kula. That how one seems to be biological, clan seems to be biological, and how the Gotras not only seems to be biological but also spiritual. Such kind of differences from paper 1 to paper 2 has to be talked about. And the modern social change and modern society, yet another important unit from here. The questions on theories of social change are emerging out. Questions on development and dependency is increasing out. Like Durkheim, Marx, in terms of their theories of social change, their relevance are being asked. The recent trends which I am looking at is basically trying not only to know that whether you understand the theoretical perspectives, what the thinkers have said, but whether you are able to relate it with a contemporary one, whether you will be able to do justice with of their work. Like sometimes they ask you whose theory seems to be more applicable, and more precisely in the second paper where the applied dimension comes out. Do not commit. Try to look at the relevance. The trend in this one is showing a growing focus on certain perspectives like science and technology, education and change. They have the new education policy, education and inequality. All right, education as a means of social mobility, policy analysis, science and technology and change. All right, questions from the movement are also emerging out from there, like the social movements. Sometimes they are asking the type, sometimes they are giving the certain dimensions. So no much shift, no much newer trend change is emerging in the unit 10. However, when we have done the paper 1, I don't know how we will be taking this line of mind. I always say that when I compare the paper 1 with the paper 2, paper 1 seems to be a bit straightforward. If I am reading one thinker or if I am reading one perspective, I am only concerned of that one. Such kind of singular understanding, singularity in perspective, what we find in the first paper gets blurred in the second paper. And that's why I always say that sociology's second paper works like a mathematics, provided you know how to comprehend it. I had told you that what are the theoretical models to be used, how the theoretical and conceptual dimensions of the first paper has to be used. And a second paper, Indian society, Indian sociology seems to be more dynamic. And that's why I had told you earlier that you need to remember one line of mind, that Indian sociology seems to be as rich in a theoretical methodological perspective as has been the first paper. Despite a long gap, sociology in a Western society, Western Europe emerged in 1838 and sociology in India emerged in 1919. Despite this lag of so many decades, a continuous shift is taking place. So when you are preparing the second paper, not only the use of the theoretical models, not only their relevance, you need to be completely analytical, no descriptive. Isolated topics are not to be prepared. Interdisciplinary, integrative dimension has to be talked about by you. All these dynamic contemporary issues which are taking place should be there. You must learn the art to provide the sociological perspectives of that one. And when you look at the part A, in which the 2 units are there in paper 2, one is the introducing Indian society, in which now they are asking the simple questions, Indological, their significance. They are also asking the Gurus, structural functionalism of mainstream Srinivas, how far structural functionalism could be applied in understanding of Indian society, structural Marxism. And from the same A.R. Desai, they are asking the social background of Indian nationalism, one of the best book where sociology and history has been wedded by A.R. Desai. And some questions which are coming out, which are nationalism and movements from the unit 2, in which the certain social movements at the time of colonial rules which have gone through in history, like they have asked the questions on Champaran, all right, movements in 2018. Sociological dynamics are being talked about. So the trend is basically talking about in terms of contemporary relevance, questions increasing ask for contemporary applications like modernization's applicability, reflecting a trend towards contextual relevance, not a textual, contextual one. So the Marxist subaltern perspective, they have asked it. Modernization and nationalism, Yogendra Singh modernization hypothesis is being asked. and particularly the impact of colonial rule on Indian society, nationalism and movement, social background of Indian nationalism. The trend is basically showing a continuity, no much change. Continuity in exploring colonialism, social impact, with a shift towards critical analysis and a specific case studies in terms of the certain movements are being asked, and nationalism. So nationalism could be there either in terms of Marxist perspective, or in terms of general, such kind of question, easy to comprehend. But when you come to the part B, you find about the number of questions which are emerging out is basically from the rural and agrarian social structure. Like agrarian transformation, they are asking the questions on land reforms, agrarian class structure, rural unrest, technology, recent question like they have asked the role of technology, contemporary issues. The trend shows the shift towards contemporary agrarian issues, unrest, technology and policy impact. With a continued emphasis on village studies, they are asking M.N. Srinivas, S.C. Dubey, such kind of, which are the part of this one. Alright. Easy one. The once you have understood the perspective, the shift in trend does not talk about. It seems more to be the static one. Though the certain kind of conceptual dimension that is shifting is basically from the second paper, part B, unit 2, that is from the caste system. Like hierarchy versus stratification debate. Alright. They are also talking about the newer perspective in terms of Dipankar Gupta. The discrete caste, model hierarchy, such kind of questions are coming out. So go deep. Do not restrict yourself merely to the 4 names. That is Louis Dumont, G.S. Ghurye, M.N. Srinivas and Andhra Bete. These are the 4 names in the perspective of the study of caste system which is written in the syllabus. Try to go broaden this one with a new kind of analysis. They are asking the subaltern one. They have asked the Dipankar Gupta. And they are also asking the structuralist perspective on caste. Alright. So that way the Louis Dumont's perspective, that has to be understood it. So untouchability and Ambedkar. There are questions on Dalit movements. So it is basically showing a focus on caste modern dynamics with increased attention to politics, identity and empirical research alongside continued emphasis of the untouchability and theoretical perspectives. Yet another very sure short question which is coming out is basically a tribal society. Alright. In a tribal perspective, you are basically looking at problem of definitions is emerging out. Colonial, neo-colonial, post-colonial kind of policies, approaches in terms of isolation, assimilation, integration. The PBTG kind of questions are coming out. Primitive vulnerable tribal groups. The newer kind of programs and policies which have been introduced, this could be the question. What are the problems of the tribal identity, tribal unrest? So this is the trend. Now when you say contemporary trend, you basically need to understand that what that unit is all about, what perspective, what different dimensions it has been opened up. And this is the third one. In a social classes, maximum question is either there in terms of the middle class, new middle class, and sometimes a bit question in terms of agrarian class structure. Alright, the trend remains stable with the focus on the new middle class and its socio-economic dynamics. And this is also for the first paper GS. Now what they are talking about, the middle class, consumerism and relating with the type 2 cities, the such kind of questions which are coming up. So the middle class is the one which is just your sort from the part B, unit 4, that is the social classes in India, and that we talk about. But do prepare the theoretical dimensions. When talk about class and caste, such kind of questions are coming out. Class in caste, caste in class. Now try to approach with a theoretical perspective. A structuralist, a structural functionalist, a structural Marxist, modernistic, which I'll be talking about as the units comes out. Nothing would be left, you would be as good as the foundation batch is there. And then focus on this area. System of kinship, same questions of patriarchy and others, the regional variations of northern and southern one. And they are opening up the family versus household debate. No much change is coming out. Though the certain new issues which are emerging out, like LGBT, they asked you, the patriarchy asked you, all right, the live-in relationship with the institutionalization, is marriage losing its institutionalized perspective? So regional variations on a family household, this has to be understood. A certain questions on a joint family could be there. And when we have talked about the part B in terms of the rural and agrarian social structure, related with the part C in which we are talking about the agrarian transformation, that is rural and agrarian transformation. Like I said, land reforms are asking, green revolution and their social impact. All right. Policy analysis questions on Manrega, minimum support price, increasing, indicating a focus on policy effectiveness, such kind of questions are there. The trend shows a shift towards contemporary issues like rural unrest, migration, all right, the green revolution 2, do we need another green revolution, the changing mode of Indian agriculture. So when you look at you do the part B, unit 1, rural agrarian structure, related with the rural agrarian transformation in a part C, unit 2. All right. And also bring about the issues of poverty, inequality, environmentalism, displacement. You bring it. They may seems to be scattered somewhere in your syllabus. You bring it over there. Prepare in one so that your answers would be opening up the different dimensions, the various dimensions. According to the need disposition, the questions would be opened up by you. All right. And when we are looking at the part B, unit 6, religion, society, no much questions, minorities, race minorities, same secularism and communalism. All right. Though, like when the triple talaq bill came out, they asked you the questions in terms of Muslim personal board and does it seems to be patriarchy. Certain ethical dimensions are coming up. Keep your value neutral. Do not be carried away by your values. Either writing, there are many issues in a second paper, Indian society, where you would be either this side or that side. No, it is not required. You cannot take sides. You need to be ethical, you need to be critical. And only for the sake of criticism, you do not have to criticize, do not be emotional. Alright, so they ask the triple talaqs. Applied sociological dimensions is emerging out. The trend shows a growing focus on religious minorities, secularism, contemporary issues like majoritarianism, and the continued emphasis on pluralism and communal dynamics. Alright, and this is the one area which is also communalism is one area from where the good number of questions have also come in a GS paper 1. So prepare on that very perspective. Alright. Now once we have done this one, then one of the most important part of the second paper is basically the part C, where we are talking about the transformation and change and challenges before the Indian society, in which you are talking about mixed economy. They are asking the questions on constitution and change. They are also repeating the questions on education and change. Alright, law and change. Such parts are there. They may ask with a certain perspective with the planning from there, plan development. Alright. So, no much change is there. But it would be related with education policy because education and social change is there. So they are asking with the new education policy. That is obvious because the new contemporary perspective is going on 2020. From there the questions have come out not only here but also in a GS as well. Agrarian transformation, I said it, that is related with the agrarian structure, green revolution and others that will have to do it. The part C, unit 3 is industrialization and urbanization, in which the urban social classes, slums, the migrant labor. Right? The urban poor. The quotients was also there in informal sectors, increasing that one. Social exclusion. Alright. Related with that was the COVID-19 lockdowns, and they started asking about the problems of the migrant laborer. So the contemporary urban issues, alright, industrial working class, urban social class, I said migrant, urban poor continue. The questions which I am looking at, informal sector, he prepared that when I said in the first paper, prepare that in the second paper as well. Just give only one reading, not much. Politics and society, similar questions what we have done over there. They are asking in terms of democracy, secularism and democracy. Civil society is being asked. The social base of the elite rule in India, the elite base in India. So originalism they are asking. This is also part of the GS paper 1. So civil society, role of media. So the trend shows increased focus on Dalit movements, secularism, regionalism, with a growing demand of the critical and example based analysis. Prepare the certain demands on. The uniform civil code and its, but be neutral. Alright. So the same questions which are there in a religion society, I said it, minorities and others. And the questions which are basically coming from the social movements are changing. And in terms of Dalit, farmer movements, women movements, environment, ecology movements, alright. Post 1907 developments and also such kind of questions have come out. Let me say it very categorically, dear. When you prepare Indian sociology with the development, and whenever you pick up any broader unit to prepare in a phase-wise kind of one. Like British, post-British, alright. When you will going through, you will finding about the certain phases, right from the village studies, to the women movements, to the tribal policies, you will find certain phases. Prepare some notes on this phase wise. Try to approach Indian sociology with the phase wise. So such kind of questions are coming up. So there should no be any confusion in you. And then the questions on coming out in terms of, I said, the inner social movements, the trend shows increased focus on environmental and identity based movements, ecological dimensions, the continued influence in Dalit feminist movement. Analytical depth is required here. And from there, once you have done the part C, unit 5, then you are finding about the questions are also coming from population dynamics. That is the part 6. Aging population questions are there. Sex ratio. NFHS 5. Try to get the data from there. Policy oriented questions on a population policies. There may be questions on a CAA or other kind of questions. Alright. What kind of population policy be required? Such kind of critical analysis would be there. So you go on that very perspective. So when we are looking at the part C, unit 6, population dynamics, the trend shows a growing focus on aging, migration and gender related demographic issues, with the continued emphasis on policy impacts and socio-cultural factors. Right. And the last one of your syllabus in second paper, part C, unit 7, is the challenges of social transformation. All the social structure which is going through, whatever the contemporary issues which are challenging Indian society, Indian nationalism, Indian identity, alright? What are the certain issues in terms of caste conflict, subjugation of women, displacement and rehabilitation, ecological environmental issues, communalism and religious revivalism, education inequality and deprivation. These all are the certain issues related with the broader society, which out of the transformation they have emerged as challenges. Same issues would be there. The moment you look at the issues would also be relating certain kind of challenges. So from here the questions are emerging up. And ethical questions are growing focus on contemporary challenges, like social media, displacement, women's empowerment, inequality, legal responses. So here the ethnic and caste conflict questions are emerging out. Political and economic dimensions of the caste and ethnicity is emerging out. Policy and legal focus like POS, they had asked the POS, highlighting legal and policy response to social issues. Alright. Displacement and rehabilitation, communalism and religious fundamentalism. Alright. Education and illiteracy and inequality, disparity, such kind of questions are there. Focus on. Such kind of questions also require certain kind of data. And if you remember the data, if you prepare your notes in terms of the certain data, the percentile of the literacy rate, illiteracy rate, quote it along with the sociological empirical examples. So, no much changes, but particularly second paper which I said dynamic. The contemporary issues, contemporary challenges are to be focused by you. Anything that is happening in any society, such kind of questions should be there. You first need to place these contemporary issues to the relevant units. Once you have been able to relate to the relevant units, you will be getting, you will come to know that what are the perspectives which have been used in that unit. And that way, your understanding would be there. From tomorrow, I will start the fundamentals of sociology. I will pick up unit 1 and 2. Alright. And sometimes, if it is not finished in one class, I will take another class as well. So, one class late is there because I told you. Alright. Have believe in me. I know that you believe in me. Alright. एक दो क्लास इधर उधर होता है, ज़्यादा टेंशन लेने का नहीं है बेटा. मेरे साथ खुश रहना है, साथ में पढ़ना है, साथ में समझना है. गूगल मीट करूंगा जल्दी, एक दो यूनिट करने के बाद आपसे जब टेस्ट हो जाएगा तो तुम ज़्यादा टेंशन मत लो, ट्रेंड को समझ लो. अब इसमें जो जिन एकदम दोज हु आर वेरी न्यू, उनको शायद ट्रेंड तो नहीं समझ में आए, लेकिन सिलेबस का डायमेंशन समझ में आएगा. तो कल जहाँ से फिर मैं शुरू करूंगा बेटा, फंडामेंटल्स ऑफ सोशियोलॉजी, इनलाइटनमेंट, modernity, consequent changes, social changes and emergence of sociology, sociology is a science. तो वहाँ से शायद आपको चीज़ें बहुत आसानी से समझ में आएंगी. So from very simple we will be going to the certain higher ups, and then we will be talking about the PYQs. All right. I wish all of you the best of luck. Thank you. If anyone has any problem, my number is there with you. Just drop the message on WhatsApp. I'll connect with you. Thank you.